You want me to introduce a new guy that I met? Sunglasses Matt. Oh yeah, Sunglasses Matt might even chew gum. Sunglasses Matt is real.
Chet
Whoa.
Lucas. Chet
Never.
Lucas.
Yeah, my name is Matt Chet Lucas.
Chet Lucas.
These were a gift. Like, Sky, I gave you two pairs of these sunglasses, and but I can use them to look in the water because they're like polarized. Sunglasses Matt is he's a cool guy with a heart of
He's a
gold.
cool guy. Yeah.
He's a cool guy.
You definitely want him on your side.
Let's get to it today. It's been wonderful. I've been getting a lot of great. You guys have been like giving great feedback on the new mobility kind of teaser that I just put out.
Nice. Yeah.
What I didn't know is on the back end. So I went back. Little story. When I first started the YAMA system, it was actually called Total BS Wellness. You remember that?
I remember that.
And I was on Into the Badlands, and I had to go to a bunch of places at one time, and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. So I kind of went into a hole and studied machine learning and stuff to be able to put out videos with some sort of way to say protect them. And then I got on to another system, but it was funny. So my goal, you guys, was to have 3 courses up. And then I went into the back end and I'm kind of adjusting some of the things. And I'm redoing it because I realize I have 77 courses on the back.
Yeah, you have a ton of material.
Yeah. And it's all kind of wrapped around a similar thing, wellness and breathing and whatever. But what I'm doing is I'm breaking it up into, you have mobility, which would be like fitness, movement, all that. So you have movement, right? So it's mobility, fitness, conditioning, stuff like that, just the fitness stuff with qigong and things like that. Then I have the YAMA, which is like YAMA. It's lines 1 through 6. Yeah, it's its own thing. Yoga, martial arts, all in one, conditioning, everything. And then I have the mindset stuff, 636 mindset, which is all the journaling, mindset, and awareness. So I broke them up into 3. So by the end of the month, everyone's going to be able to choose either one, or you guys could get in there and do all of them for premium. So you can either pieces, parts it. But I've been working on that because, there's a lot back there. Last thing too, y'all been doom and glooming me to death. So whenever I get doom and gloomed, I say you're scared because you're not prepared. So I'm re-upping, I'm putting at the forefront that amazing talk that we did with Zach, our wonderful student. You guys will see him in some of the videos, but Zach Adenoff, emergency management, emergency planning. And there's a lot of little things in there that if you're starting to feel about the uncertainties of life, just get your water. There's some really good, helpful hints in there that are just about, like, no matter where you are, like, for example, like, have comfortable shoes in the back of your car, because maybe you break down and you're wearing your high heels, it's New Year's, and you need to walk somewhere and you don't have the shoes for it. So little things like that to get you prepared.
Having water in the car. Empty bottles, things like that.
Yeah, things like that. A good flashlight, lighter, all the good things. So I'm gonna put that up. It'll be on the front page of the website. It's free. It's just a thing that I think is really important because you're not allowed to doom and gloom me. I don't doom and gloom. It's not my thing. I'm a self-defense teacher. I'm a martial artist. Say you're scared because you're not prepared. So learn to prepare.
You just work with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't prepare because you're paranoid. Prepare because it's you don't learn to fall because you think you're gonna always be falling. You learn to where you can learn things, right? You don't. Yeah. So you can put a positive spin on anything.
Well, it's about developing a vocabulary, right?
Yeah. And again, martial artists are the hardest to attack, right? Because we know how hard it is to fight, and so what you want to do is stay aware, right? And awareness can save you a bunch. Anyways, I'm kind of out here in the sun. Let's
Speaking of preparedness,
let's do this.
He comes up.
What moon is this?
We've started a few days ago, the last new moon of the Wood Dragon year, which is the Ox moon, right? So it is this is all the logistics and sort of technical details in terms of how the cosmology works. So Spring Festival, what's called Spring Festival, is a certain period of time that kicks off the new year, right? So it's not, it may not start specifically at spring. It may start a few days before it, um, because this is a lunar calendar. So there's a variety of different indicators that align in different ways from year to year. So it's not, as Ming would say, this is not a German calendar. It's not about precision. It's about this lunar sort of sense of interrelationship, right? So spring, but generally, yeah, Matt.
This has been irking me, and I think you're the guy to ask. This is
Okay.
off subject, but I realize we have the lunar calendar and we have the Gregorian calendar.
Right.
And I always wonder who's Greg?
That's what I always wonder too. So the Tongshu is, the oldest Asian calendar, right? It's been around for, I mean, there are indicators in the Tongshu that like we have no origin time. They've just have
Hmm.
always been there, right? So
Okay.
very, very old stuff. And then various cultures have their own take on this notion of the Tongshu. So they might be saying, oh no, the Chinese, we were before the Chinese. And there's some legitimacy to that because there's a lot of really very potent and fundamental notions like yin and yang, five elements. Those things sort of predate Chinese culture. They've been preserved by the Chinese and
Hmm.
integrated and expanded upon, but the Chinese culture technically didn't, if we're talking about the Han, because Chinese could mean so many different things, because you're looking at a serious cornucopia of cultures in the Asian terrain. So what we think of as
Hmm.
Chinese in America is Han, which is just one culture of dozens and dozens of cultures, many of which have been driven to extinction by other cultures in this kind of warlike soup. So it's
War
talking
soup
about, yeah, war
and name.
soup. So like there's a lot to say about Chinese culture, but what we have right now is a lot of things that have been preserved and developed over time. But some of the most fundamental concepts, like yin and yang, the five elements, are predate. So there's a lot about the Tongshu itself also predates Chinese culture, but has been preserved and expanded upon. So this is a lunar solar, what's called a lunar solar calendar. And so
Okay.
that means, fun fact, every 2 or 3 years, sometimes 5 years, there is a year that has 13 moons instead of 12. So the wood snake year, which is the year that we're going into after this moon, this final 12th moon, will have 13 moons.
Ooh,
So that
that's
means that
13 moons.
they do that to calibrate because the solar calendar and the lunar calendar don't line up precisely, right? So
Okay.
so there's a carryover, there's a remainder that sort of adds up to an
Hmm.
additional moon, right? And that you see 13 new moons.
Hmm.
So it's just a way of tracking. Um, it's just a way of tracking time. But the 12th moon that we're in right now is the ox moon. It's always the ox moon. And in this particular case, it's a fire ox moon, just like last moon was a fire rat moon. So this is a fire ox moon. And this takes us into the new year, which is the wood snake year. So in particular, when we're talking about the 12th moon, we're talking about the ox moon. This is a place where the earth comes up, right? So earth being the element that transitions between the seasons. So the 12th
Hmm.
moon is the ox moon is earth moon and brings up this kind of it basically anytime earth shows up, it's burying something. So it's burying the metal element from autumn. So we're not retracting anymore. We're preparing for freshness. We're preparing to transition towards spring. That doesn't mean we're expanding. What the ox moon is about, I mean, to put it very short and sweet, if the 11th moon was about just managing your essentials, eat, breathe, sleep, right? Then the ox moon is about going back to basics.
Mm.
And that's really should you, because there's no effort, there's no capacity, because we've gone through the solstice, it's ending, the solstice period is ending, and yin is in decline. So it's collapsing. It's kind of like seeing a mountain kind of crumble. You don't know what's happening, right? So, but there's no, and yang is still buried, beneath the so it's still contained within. So we're not letting it out because it's like a newborn and a grandmother, right? That's the image that Ming would always use, is this grandmother caring for a newborn. So she's a little bit senile, doesn't know what's going on, and the baby is like
Mm.
fussy and maybe a little independent, but has no power, to generate anything, right? So we're in this really kind of unique in between space where what we rely upon is momentum. We're relying upon the momentum, not just of like the things we've done or the things we've stored or the patterns and conventions and routines, the grooves that we have. Oxen are known for grooves, right? So you got your groove, you keep your groove, right? That would be the advice of any 12th moon, because conventions are a kind of activity, a format for activity that preserves our stability. And it's preserving our stability is what we need to do. We need to lean on those things that we don't have to double check for the most part.
Okay.
So there's
Mhm.
two facets. So the first facet we're talking about is this kind of like leaning on a momentum. And then the second facet is this kind of instinctual preparedness. We are preparing to some extent for spring. We are
Mhm.
sort of getting our ducks in a row, but it's not about making intentions. It's just about sort of instinctual preparation. In the cosmology of the Tongshu, it means cleaning house. It means kind of emptying things out. We want to be empty so we can receive growth, right? We want to move things out that we don't need. We want to sort of less is more approach in January. That's why I say go back to basics. Like forget
Mm.
empowerment. Don't try to get a head start. That's ridiculous. There's no capacity to generate momentum, real momentum. You'll just end up doing double work. Right?
Mhm.
You'll do a bunch of things, but then you'll have to go over it again because it didn't really stick because there's no
Mhm.
chi for it, right? So you can push and push and push all you want, and it is a fire ox moon, which means everybody's kind of on their edge of the seat and they're all ready to go. Okay, let's do this. But everybody's still clueless, because it's the signs aren't really there for expansion or forward movement. They're more there for this kind of keep calm and carry on kind of vibe. So you should go slow, Matt.
What would you tell a person that, because again, we're just pieces parting our dogmas now, right? So what would you tell a person that just 2025, new year, new me, let's hit the ground running. I'm gonna go take, yeah, I'm doing a half marathon by February, and then and then and then snake year person, so it's like, to you it's not the new year, to you everyone
Right.
that was in Times Square was wrong. I'm just kidding.
No, 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 no,
No,
no.
but what would you
Yeah,
tell a person that is coming into 2025 with a go get 'em attitude,
right.
and then but really there's not the chi for it?
I would say examine that experience over the years. How successful has that been? How many
Yeah.
times have we seen, I'm making a strong resolution on day
Hmm.
one, right? And where does that go?
Yeah.
Like and more than
How's
that,
that?
like what do you tell yourself about yourself when it fails? What do you say? How do you judge yourself on that? Yeah.
That was the advice challenge that I did with people last year, which by the way
Mm,
was awesome. Everybody
mm,
was sending in, and I just learned so much. But really, what it comes down to is, if you guys go on the website, you can read this thing about time, place, and context,
uh-huh.
and it's about like, okay, so you're making your New Year's resolutions, but really, what it is consider your time, consider your place, and consider the context. Like, do you want to get in shape because you want your old body back? Like, who are you in time today? Like there's all these like ways that we can mix this up, and really it's not about setting anything up. It's about saying, if I want to go here, how do I need to slow down, check my time, my before, my after, check all of my things, my social obligations, all that stuff,
Right.
And like,
Right.
there's a lot of work that needs to be done before you remodel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's that's a great image about the idea of remodeling. You know, like people want to jump right in and like start smashing down walls and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's because I think it's because we have this sort of we have a culture that never wants to look back. You know, we
Yep.
only
Yep.
want to, there's nothing, you know, we're rushing forward to the next beginning, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like, there's a lot of serious disrespect shown to
Mm,
yin.
yeah.
Serious disrespect, absolute disrespect. We think yin has absolutely no power. But as you've just fundamentally mistaken, you know, because you don't intend to digest your food. You
Yeah.
just eat. You know, you don't intend to, you know, to do major functions of your body, breathe. Um, you know,
Well,
the list can go on. So
that's
there's,
like what I was talking about with this website thing, where it's like I just kind of sat back and I was doing all this stuff and all these things are coming around, but I was like, you know what? I just want to like sit down and see for a second, right? And I sat there and it's always like, oh yeah, I have all the stuff that I need right here. So
yeah,
now
check
I'm
your
just,
tools.
yeah, so now I'm just organizing it, and
Yes.
then
Yeah.
and realize like, um, one of the chapters in this book I call it the super glue drawer. And it's
Hmm.
like, every time you want super glue, you're at the store and you're like, do I need super glue? Right. And you go buy super glue, and then you go home and you have like 5 tubes of super glue already in the same drawer, and none of them, you know what I mean? They're all like dried up. You haven't, you squirt a
Right,
little
right.
bit of you know what I mean?
Super glue drawer.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
always guys, everyone's got the super
Is
glue
it's
drawer
the
or the
junk
tape
drawer,
drawer.
yeah, junk,
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
junk drawer.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
where you're like, oh yeah, I guess I do have Gorilla Glue.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I got it's the two kinds that I have to mix, and I don't, you know, when I get
Oh, the
any
epoxy.
the
Mm,
epoxies. Yeah, so I mean,
yeah.
you know, the interesting thing about the Chinese perspective is that, you know, in the West, we love to ask this question, is it nature or nurture?
Mhm,
We have the we're a real fascination with this question.
mhm.
In Chinese culture, the answer to that question has always been yes.
Yeah, it's both.
It's
Yeah.
of course, you know, and both of
Please.
them are required, you know, to actually to move forward into anything you might want to do. And the sort of we're at the nature part, which is we're sort of
Mhm,
resting on this kind of the things that are sort of taken for granted. Again, not just all the momentum that we built last year that we're surviving on through this winter, and then preparing for emptying out so we can receive again,
mhm,
but then also our inheritance, our ancestral inheritance, like that this
mhm,
notion that we should look back, you know, for the blessings of the past as we
mhm,
move forward. So there's a kind of deep relatedness there that invites us to sleep, you know, that invites us to dream. There's a lot of yin dynamism that's happening here. I have no idea what's happening. You have no idea what's happening. Like it's really kind of subconscious or unconscious that comes right up to the surface. Like so, the
mhm,
interesting thing about the ox is that the meaning is always right on the surface. It's what you see is what you get, right? So that
mhm,
what that is this kind of inheritance that's usually in Chinese medicine you call it yuan qi. So it's this inherited qi that basically gives us our physiology, our form, our predispositions, our capacity to digest pizza, you know, whatever, that actually comes up to the surface. So, from a medicine standpoint, you can correct these things over this moon and over the first moon. You can actually modify those things. You can actually, you know, let go of things that are excessive and stressful and shorten your life, like trying to run a marathon in February, right? So
Ooh.
you can actually modify your behavior that actually has more of a long-term effect. I mean, we have a lot of ancestors that wanted us to do crazy things, but we're at a turning point in our culture
Mhm.
where there is a kind of like, hey, I don't really want to go to the moon. I just want to have clean food. You know, like
Right, right, right.
there's a correction that's happening. And so we can participate in that by respecting yin, especially right now, Matt.
I was just in the time place context thing, I was just saying like we have such a hard time making those tweaks, yet for some reason you're okay taking your grandma's brownie recipe and making it gluten free, right? And
Sure.
it's, you know what I mean? And it's just sort of like, no,
Sure.
this is your life today, time, place, context. What do we know now? Say
Right.
thanks to this stuff. And how can we bring
Right.
in these things and try it out? So
Yeah,
yeah.
it doesn't. The interesting thing about this moon is that, and I can't emphasize this enough, there's no intention here. There's no intention. Like you don't have to have intention. There's
Mm,
plenty, you have plenty of instincts to operate off of.
mm.
You just need to stop with the intention stuff and actually drop into more of an instinctual approach. Because
Okay.
we're all sort of on automatic pilot right now.
Who's don't say you, anyways. Y'all go
Very,
on the
very.
website. Y'all go on the website and look at and scroll down it. It says get off autopilot. But that's always the first step is like we're on autopilot, and those things that are on
Uh,
autopilot, we oftentimes don't know we're on autopilot of them. And
sure.
those are the things that keep us from able to be adapt because we're already full of autopilot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the unfortunate thing about the 12th moon is that, yeah, that this kind of changing courses, changing
Mm-hmm.
direction and stuff like that too soon. Like we can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine that we're going to be able to course correct everything like right away. Like it's you have to get your tools ready, right? That's why I say go back to basics. Like, okay, I'm getting my eating right. I'm getting sleep patterns. I'm actually catching up on sleep, especially if I had a busy holiday. Like I'm actually trying to stockpile some sleep. I'm trying to nap
Mm-hmm.
more. I'm trying to, basic stuff. If you want to make any kind of New Year's resolution, it should be sleeping more or getting more rest or like, trying to do some kind of thing that speaks more to yin production than yang
Yeah.
production, right? So that would be the time to do that because what we're doing is we're building a better foundation for
Mm-hmm.
understanding when we do take off, when things do start rolling, we actually have a foundation to come back to know how to say. Ming would always say, if you don't nurture yin in the winter, then you'll never know how to stop in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
You won't ever know when enough is enough unless you have some relationship to yin. So like
Mm-hmm.
yin is about like discovering our values, what it is we really, really care about. And then when you get into the, summer is a crazy time. Like we're taken in so many different directions. How do you ground yourself in the summer? It's by nourishing yin in the winter, like and preparing, especially in this 12th moon, to kind of get more grounded. As we were talking about it on the phone, like the wood dragon is very dreamy, right? It's very, spacey almost. It's like very dreamlike, flying in the clouds, very windy, right? It's moving lots of things, but it doesn't really manifest as much. It's the most lightweight dragon. Just saying, of the five, it's the most lightweight. Its manifestation is very ephemeral rather. It's like it just kind of here and then gone again. It's very artistic in that way, what we call artistic. It's just like a single experience and then gone like the wind. So the wood snake is like really inviting us to kind of lose the flying, come back down to earth. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
snake doesn't fly. The snake is like traveling on the ground. Like you're very intimate with the earth, like figuring things out because you're like immersed in it, right? So this is because the fire ox, the ox is a good buddy of the snake. This is kind of like a, get grounded moment, because really, really get grounded. Not ambition, too much. It's too much. Get
Okay.
really into like the sort of instinctual vibe. Again, coming back to basics, because the less you have going on, the simpler and more basic your approach is, then that means you have this kind of spaciousness in your life to then grow, right? But if you
Mm-hmm.
already have too many things that you're trying to get going, then spring is just going to come and just rip them all away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, right? You're trying to juggle too much already in January, then spring is going to come knock you off, right? But if you've only got one or two things, then spring can kind of stimulate you and grow one thing or reduce this and take this away and give you that. And like then it's about being adaptable during that time. But now it's like this kind of grounded mentality, I think is you can trust it. You can really trust it. Like you should practice trusting it because anybody who's watching this is right now is going, I don't think that's me. That sounds very uncomfortable.
Right.
Everybody has that feeling of just, you mean don't move? Like they have like visceral against that. And that's because we haven't habitually developed this sort of yin dynamism of sort of trusting
Mm.
good timing, trusting doubt, trusting trusting sadness as giving us some kind of valuable information about where we actually are, not where we want to be or how we imagine ourselves to be better once we get to, not some justification of our lives, more like this very, I'm in my own body, I'm in my own embodiment, and it feels this way.
Mm.
And that's, I don't even need to justify it by saying it's
Mm.
okay. This is just my actual real experience. Um, there's like a whole universe in that, and that whole universe is shared with like tens of thousands of other human beings who you owe your life to, and that's the real wisdom tradition of the Chinese tradition, is that your actual embodied reality as an incarnated human being is an omen, yeah, of this kind
Mm.
of a heritage of incarnated states and people one after the other for thousands, many hundreds of years, and here you are. So all of those things sort of have some influence in our experience. We don't have the vocabulary for this because we don't have ways of recognizing our ancestors culturally. But fortunately, all you have to do is just uh, validate your own feelings. Validate your own
Mm.
experience. I think that does a lot. We don't have to have some fancy ancestral ritual. We can actually just validate our own feelings, because that's like kind of the first step to sort of resolving what we're going through, instead of like running away to some solution. Yeah,
I'm probably gonna get whacked with weather here, so let's do a
that's
quick
right.
married
I'm
or
I'm
married.
I'm good with getting off the soapbox.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, mm,
Who's sorted for this? And so if it's all about just getting back to basics, like
back to
I,
basics.
f- I feel everyone's cool with that, but some people might just misinterpret it or try to tweak it to feed their own
I
ideas. But
think
like, yeah.
I think the only ones okay, so the ones most at risk, because dragons have big enough mind to wait, okay? Um uh Rats are perfectly fine going step by step. Monkeys are the ones who might fuck around and find out.
Mm.
This would be a very dangerous time for them because tiger's right around the corner, right? So
Mm,
they really do want to take it step by step and not get ahead of themselves, because
okay.
even if it goes well for them in this moment during the ox moon, they could get whacked on it later with the tiger,
Mm.
right? So they do need to kind of play it safe. And then dogs, you know I think dogs, as long as they're not in a hurry, they're perfectly fine, because they've got their little pack. The tigers, I give them a pass on this one, just because they're getting ready for a snake year. And snake year is not very comfortable for them. For the most part, I would say tigers need to sleep in. They should
Mm.
sleep in. So this would be a kind of, slow, again, kind of step by step process for tigers. Don't rush into anything. Horses, um, the biggest thing the horses need to worry about in this moon is injury. Um, because that's actually setting the stage for the entire snake moon, this kind of, or snake year, this potential for setback. Because they're sort of sensing the horse year that's right after the snake year, so they want to get moving. And snake year actually might set them back, um, but that would depend on a couple other things. But anyway, like, again, slower, disciplined, like more disciplined with horses. Um, all the domestics are fine during this time, because they're sort of accustomed to moving slowly out of winter. So your pigs, and your rabbits, the only one that has any trickiness is the goat in ox moon, just because they're uh, maybe wanting to complain and get a head start, and
Mm,
and the ox is like, no. Yeah, we're not really having a debate. This is the way it's done. And and the ox is like, well, I have some things to say, and the ox doesn't care.
Mm,
Um, so and then oxes, perfectly natural. If you have ox friends, hang out with them, because you'll get the vibe of how fast or how slow to go. Um, so lean on your ox friends. Snakes also is good to lean on them because they do have a sort of preternatural sense of the pace. They're sort of coming into their own right now,
mm,
sort of ahead of the snake year. They're coming into their own, and the rooster is definitely ledgering it up. They are keeping track of resources. Yeah, so this
mm,
is a good time for them because they're basically balancing the scales in preparation for the spring. So again, if if you're a rabbit, don't ask a rooster, but everybody else can ask a rooster, like, hey, can I really afford this? And they'll most likely they'll be like, no, or
mm,
wait. So they might have a conservative viewpoint, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually really practical. So if you have money, concerned about the future, ask a rooster. They tend
mm,
to have a pretty good sense of these things. And the rabbit, I think I didn't mention, but um, is should really just as much as possible enjoy the safety and the security of the sort of more close, intimate friends, and don't rush into spring. Things will come pretty hard. Like the first two moons. Well, the first this is sort of a preview. Snake. There it comes in two parts. There's the first four moons, yeah, first four moons, and as the first half of the year, and then the second half. And the first four moons will be they could be pretty edgy and pretty difficult because there is a kind of shifting that's happening. Has to do with kind of ripples. The transition between your dragon to snake is pretty seamless in this case because both are wood and both go from water to wood. So it's you can't really tell where one ends and the other begins. So there is a kind of sense where people are talking about like, oh, it may not be spring yet, but there is a kind of feeling that we're already headed toward that snake energy, because the snake is kind of like the tail of the dragon, right? Again, coming down to earth, not flying high, but there will be these kind of ripple effects. This is kind of a spoiler of the wood snake year talk. So it is a kind of ripple effect of the sea changes that were sort of instigated in the dragon year. There will be this cascading kind of ripple effect. In the first four moons will be the strongest, and then
mm,
it will be about like our response and how do we adapt and respond to those sort of ripple changes of the
mm.
first four moons of the year. So that's why I say for the 12th moon, yeah, like don't rush because it's going to get plenty exciting, like, so go back to the basics, get your ground, know where, uh, like we were talking about in the beginning, like have a bottle of water in the car and some shoes to run, like being prepared, I think is a big part of what's available in this moon. So, but don't think of preparation as necessarily like accumulation that I need to grow or achieve something. Work with what you have. Um, and then lastly, I'll say once we get to the full moon of this particular of the 12th moon, then it's typically traditionally understood that like in the last 2 weeks of that 12th moon, you're not going out. You're really home, because you got to be home base, right? That's the understanding, and that's the time
Mm.
where the spring cleaning really happens in
Okay.
preparation. So you're not even lighting the stove necessarily. You're eating cold. They say eat cold food. It just means don't generate, right? You're working with what you have and rearranging. So like feng shui adjustments, all incredibly favorable this moon, and especially from the full moon to the new moon of the new year, is because you're basically rearranging what you have and working with what you have to prepare yourself for being open to change and grounding, right? So you can manage it. But if you just rush into accumulation right away, then again, once you hit, if you do that and you get to spring, you'll get knocked off your block. So it's
Mm.
good. It's better to ground and do more with less than to try to grow.
Yeah, it's always my mantra these days, dude.
Yeah,
Not
thanks. I
only
appreciate that.
I really appreciate that, and sunglasses Matt
Sunglasses,
also thinks
Matt.
you did great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
Oh, but other Matt's back. Eyebrows Matt is back, and yeah, you guys watch the being prepared video. It's
Yeah, good call.
it's important.
I mean,
Just
Zach is awesome. Yeah. I mean,
Zach's so great. I love him. We ate Ethiopian food when I was back, and I loved him.
mm,
Got to do body work on him and stuff like that. And plus, it's really cool because this is like a universal. It's like no matter what time. This is one of my first courses that I ever did was with Zach,
mm.
and it was based around all the self-defense things that we forget about. Like we're focused on like fighting and stuff, but it's always about diet, it's always about awareness and being prepared of these things that might make you, a little bit more easy to put in fight or flight and to be in a reactionary state, as opposed to the story that I use is when I was in Ireland, I immediately knew I was on an island. So I put together a little prepared kit. And then the storm came through and all the stores shut down. And then everyone's racing to the stores to get stuff. And I already had stuff. So I just went home and cooked some stews and stuff. And I remember 4 days later, 3 or 4 days later, me and Daniel were running around bringing food to people because people didn't have food. And he did, I did. And this one guy, he was like stuck way out in the middle of in this hotel, and he had to live off of this little bag of these like Irish, like it would be kind of the like Funyuns, but like
Oh,
some Irish brand. And this guy's like a stunt guy. He was like tough and ate a lot, and he had to live off this little travel size bag of these little potato chips called Hunky Dories. And he's like, I just need food. He's like, I've just been living. He had this little bag. He had to ration himself for like 3 days.
wow.
And yeah, so it's there were people like up on the top of this hill. They didn't know how to drive in the snow, and we had to go and get them. It was all kinds of stuff. So just
Yeah.
be prepared. A little bit of prep can make sure you can just ease in. I mean,
Yeah, it
yeah.
doesn't, and again, I don't mean to like the 12th moon. I've been doing a lot of feng shui moving, and it's not like it's not like I approached it being like, okay, what changes do I need to make? It's
Mhm.
just sort of like throughout the winter, you're like, I think I want things to look different. Or I think I want things to do this or do
Mm,
that, right? You
yeah.
already know. You're already having the instinct, and you don't have to force it, and it doesn't have to be dramatic. You're just like, I want to put this here and I'm going to put it there. Okay, that looks great. So it's like an afternoon, but like
Mhm.
really clean, they say clean the floors, clean out this, like throw away the things you didn't use, like anything old and you don't want, like just it's a fantastic sort of process that doesn't have to be particularly cerebral.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just about like having all your ducks in a row in a way, just having yourself sort of grounded and prepared for how things can
Mhm.
go.
Yeah.
So it can be extreme, like what you're talking about, but it can also be like, I just redid
Yeah.
my cupboard, like, and perfect, and
Yep.
there'll be more of that when you go into spring, because then Tiger comes along and says, you don't need those things, sell them, like get
Mhm.
rid of them, or give them
Mhm.
away, like make a big change so that you can continue to kind of do this purging. So it's
Yeah.
not limited to the 12th moon. So again, I just say follow your instincts on that. I might say something, but if you're not feeling it, that's okay. Like really just stay with your experience. That's really what it's all about.
Mm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Go on site, do all the stuff. Um,
Get
Happy
out
New
of the
Year,
rain.
everybody. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hopefully it's fine. I wanted to I picked up surfing, so I've been in the water a lot lately, and this is great. But
Getting all
cool.
bronze on me. Getting all bronze.
Look, I mean, I don't know, man. Look, just
Don't deny
sometimes
it.
you just
Don't deny it. Don't deny it.
Look, man, these beach volleyball tournaments are going to win themselves, right? So
Right.
less
You know what I'm
that
saying?
needs,
Yeah.
you know, it's
You know
like,
what I'm saying?
yeah, it's like on my 60th birthday, I'm going to try to get king of the beach.
I mean, those shrimp cocktails are just sitting there.
Oh. Mm, mm. Yeah, thanks guys. All right,
All
it's
right.
good to see you. I'll call you in a little bit. I'm going
Okay.
to oh wait, I apologize to everyone for me just doing this. Sunglasses, Matt. I don't know who I am anymore, guys. I'm in too deep, and yeah, but it's been a wonderful year of just sitting out in this peaceful water, just relaxing. So cool. All right, I'll call you later. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.